set of books that we call the Bible in Stories. And really all a student needs to do in the summertime in order to show them is to have volume 1, and this is all they now carry in their sample case. It weighs 3 pounds, and that lightens up the student's sample case. But this is what the students are showing in the summertime now during varsity. It's called the Family Growth Program Series because we plan on, Lord willing, adding on to the series some other items in the future. So the branding is the Family Growth Program, and it's called the Bible in Stories. Notice there's no Jesus on the front with kids. It's not kidized. Another thing that I realized, having 5 children and having 20 or 30 different Bible storybooks in my home, is most of the Bible storybooks are sanitized. They're written in a way to appeal to the broadest audience, so they'll sell the most. This is not sanitized. And most of you are familiar, if you remember some of the older product line, Thomas Nelson, some things will look familiar to you, but there's a lot of new ideas in here that I just realized from the families. We wanted to put a presentation page in because a lot of people are getting this as a gift. We knew that a lot of parents would be buying it, but what we're finding is that a lot of 50, 60, 70-year-olds are buying it, and they're not buying it for their grandkids. They're buying it to use themselves. And so the width of the market is just amazing us. But a lot of people are getting as gifts. Some people buy 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 sets. Because when you think about it, if a grandparent is buying or a parent's buying an Xbox game or clothes or toys or whatever, I've always heard it said from one of the old sales managers that the gift says a lot about the giver. And I just know a lot of parents and grandparents out there that want to be remembered by something like this, instead of an Xbox game, or instead of I should say a computer game, because nothing wrong with an Xbox game, but computer games or internet CDs, or giving a kid a DVD, or a toy that's going to wear out, or clothes that they're going to outgrow, but something that's going to last and be timeless. And so with that said, a lot of people have been getting these gifts. We put in the front a publisher's note that basically to every customer would explain a little bit of the background of Varsity, the Family Growth Program series, and our idea of quality materials and features, basic knowledge, and things to be of good value. I need my pen out of my planner.
All right.
We put in the front a section that, honestly, if a student was struggling out there in the summertime, they could turn the book upside down and it would demo the book for them just by reading it. We actually kind of wrote the demo in here, but it gives them kind of a little bit of background information on Varsity, the idea of the Family Growth Program, our commitment being to quality materials, nothing cheap, no cheap paper, no cheap binding, and quality features that you don't find in a lot of products out there on the market today. Basic knowledge, basic information that does not change. Timeless was the idea. And then of good value. Again, not something that's cheap. We're not going to make excuses. This set of books is not cheap, but it is a very good value, and I think you'll see why. And then, I'm not very creative, but I believe God gave me this entire page in about 30 minutes after my devotions one morning, where it talks about our intent in prayer and what the book's all made up of. Memory pictures, easy to read, short stories, because people don't have a lot of time. They want something organized and to the point. Each story is short. There's more stories. Most of the Bible story books have 20 or 30, 40 stories in them. Moses and the 10 Commandments, Daniel and the lion's den, David and Goliath, and 20 or 30. But if you're doing devotions, or if a child's reading or an adult's reading on a consistent basis, reading those same 30 or 40 stories gets kind of old. I mean, you pretty much can memorize them. And then there's many other lessons that the Bible teaches that just aren't covered, that aren't addressed. This is one of the things, the detailed index, that separates it from anything in the world. A book, we believe, is only as good as its index. And we spent literally months by hand a detailed topical index with 599 topics, and we'll show you that. Typical Bible storybook, again, has 20 or 30 stories. We're only to Genesis chapter 35 here. And in volume 1, which I'm holding, we have the entire table of contents each story is very plainly labeled. There's no story title like The Wind Whispers. I mean, what is that? What is that story about? What does it mean? Every story has the major character's name in it, or the major event that was happening, so that if a person does have Bible knowledge, or if there is something they know of it's in the Bible, they can just skim down the table of contents and be able to find it. It does give scripture for every single story, so you can look it up in the Bible. And then it gives you the page number of exactly where to turn to. But the entire table of contents for all 3 volumes is placed here at the front of Volume 1. The New Testament, when you come to the New Testament, it is arranged chronologically, like the whole outline of the 3-volume set is Genesis through Revelation. But when you get to the New Testament and the Gospels, where items are interchanged time-wise, we organize the Gospels and put them in chronological order of when they happened in time, and then it goes back into Acts and Romans and Revelation on down through. There's a page for the books of the Bible, Old New Testament, so I want to remember those. A note from Jennifer Love, the writer. Now, what I want you to do, without reading anything, don't try to read anything, I just want you to look at the pictures and tell me what the story's about. Here we're in the beginning, and obviously, yes, this is a story about creation. Now again, without reading, what's this story about? Exactly. Adam and Eve in the garden, and he's naming all the animals. Then what's happening here? Yes, you have the serpent, the devil tempting Eve, and you have them taking the forbidden fruit and being kicked, or God confronting them in the garden. What about this one? Exactly. Who were the first 2 children born to Adam and Eve? Exactly. Cain and Abel. What's happening here? What's about to happen here? The point I'm demonstrating to you is that we think in pictures. More importantly, we remember in pictures. This, to my knowledge, is one of the largest that exists on the planet today. I had no idea that we could get our hands on this. This artwork was done by one man, James Paget, from 1970 to 1974. He did 8 by 10 color ink pen drawings. He did over 2,300 of them. We have used a little over 1,500 of the illustrations in the 3-volume set. I had no idea we could get our hands on this, but Dr. Towns helped me secure the rights to use these for this project. And every character has their own face. They have their own expressions of emotion. And it's one of the, like I said, the largest bodies of artwork, but it's also biblically accurate artwork. There's a lot of artwork out there in the Bible these days that, honestly, it's not biblically accurate. And there's so much I like, but it's full color throughout the whole book. You'll notice that every story is starting and stopping on a 2-page spread. If you've ever read a Bible storybook before with yourself or children, a lot of times you'll be reading a story and it won't finish, and you'll turn the page to finish the story, but when you turn the page to finish this story, the pictures here are about the next story. And you're reading about, and the pictures don't agree. So we wanted to solve that. So what we did is we put every story on a 2-page spread. It's 250 to 350 words, every story. There's a quiz questions at the end. And it doesn't give them the answer, so if they need to look back in the story, they can, but it's right there. Questions are not at the back or down on the bottom, but they're right beside it. There are themes given, like dishonesty or promised land. The scripture reference is given. So they can, again, look it up in the Bible, but there's themes in each one of these stories, or principles, or morals, or values that a child may want to learn about, or a parent may want to teach, or a grandparent may want to. But that's kind of the layout of every story is on a 2-page spread. This first volume goes up to 1 Samuel, but probably one of the things that's most beneficial about the book is in Volume 1, we have the topical index. And again, it's 599 topics on faith, love, courage, marriage, kindness, bragging, pouting, bribery, and it's cross-reference. So if somebody was thinking, like if they thought of the word believe, well, another person might think of the word faith. Well, it's cross-referenced, so no matter how a person's thinking, it'll kick them back to the topic they want, and it tells them the exact page number to turn to. This allows anyone that knows the alphabet, child and adult alike, to be able to find anything very quickly because it's an alphabetical order. And again, 599 topics, just about everything you can imagine. Because I grew up in a public school setting where nowadays it seems like evolution is taught a lot, I wanted to give the families a resource that would kind of help them combat some of what they're hearing in the schools or on some television stations. And so a friend of mine that travels the world talking about creation and evolution, I asked him to write some teaser articles on the age of the earth and dinosaurs and the Grand Canyon, the flood, Noah's Ark, kind of like teaser articles to answer some of those basic questions. And in the back is a list of books and DVDs. It's a lot of ICR, Institute of Creation Research, and AIG, Answers in Genesis information, but DVDs and books, if a person wanted more information, this would make it very easy to Google the title. There are 39 old traditional hymns, because a lot of parents sing and read and then answer the questions, and they want songs, so there's 39 old traditional hymns scattered throughout the 3-volume set. You haven't seen the best thing about the book, though. As I was a student out there on the field, I always personally wanted a built-in gospel presentation in the books. And I know that's not politically correct, but there's a lot of families out there that say, Glenn, there's nothing more important than knowing for sure that a person's saved, and that when we leave this earth, that we know for sure how to go to heaven. And so I contacted one of my old professors, Sumner Wimp, and I said, Dr. Wimp, I said, here's what I'm doing, here's the format. I said, sir, I've always wanted a built-in gospel track. Would you be willing to write one story? He said, Glenn, I'd be tickled. And what he did is he wrote on Acts chapter 16. It's right after the table of contents. It's in volume 1. It's the very first story before you start. And he entitled it, How to Know for Sure You're Going to Heaven. And it's